Hey guys, Mono here. Welcome back to the channel. I got a really good one for you today. For this episode, I have here a bike that you don't hear that often. A bike that is massively overlooked, but something worth checking out. This is a Kawasaki KLX230S, and as you can see, we are in the process of turning this bike into a Supermoto. And since we're turning this into a Supermoto, we will be discussing the parts needed to convert this one, and I will give you my honest first-time riding impressions. Yes, just a quick ride around the block to see what this bike feels like. So if you're curious about this bike, stick around because this video might help you. Alrighty, let's start with the specs, the ones that matter the most. The KLX230S is a dual sport ideal for off-road and on-road shenanigans. Ideal for the rider who wants to go anywhere. It is powered by a 233cc, air-cooled, 2-valve, fuel-injected 4-stroke single producing roughly 19 horsepower and 18 Nm of torque. Transferring that power to the ground is a 6-speed manual transmission, which is a big plus for a bike of this capacity. The chassis is a perimeter-style box steel frame, which is a trademark to what you find in the KLX line. Suspension up front is a 37mm non-adjustable telescopic fork with 8.7 inches of travel. The back is a preload adjustable only monoshock with 8.8 inches of travel. You get front and rear disc brakes, and the stock wheels are 21 and 18, which is the gold standard for off-road motorcycles. Seat height is a reasonable for a dirt bike, 34 inches off the ground. Wet weight is around 290 pounds or 131 kilograms. This bike comes equipped with a very basic yet easy to read digital display, a very industrial sounding electric start, and a tiny 7.5 liter fuel tank. Sad to say, no kickstart. Now if you're going to look at this bike on the specs alone, it's not really that impressive, but that is the reason why a test ride is a must, which I will be talking about later. Supposed to be, this bike is best ridden off-road, where it's meant to be. But since we're converting this to a street machine, let's talk about the parts we use to make it happen. Converting the KLX230S is a very straightforward process, just like all the conversions I did before. For this build, we will be using the stock hubs because that's the most economical way. Now, some people will say that the KLX150 hubs will fit the 230. And the answer to that is yes, it does, but with a lot of modifications and more add-ons. Tell me, what does this look like? Save yourself the hassle and just go with the stock hubs. For rims, we'll be using a 3.5 by 17 for the front and a 4.25 by 17 at the back. Standard size Supermoto rims. For spokes, we'll be needing 170 or 175mm long spokes. Now, if you don't have those, a pair of 185s will work, but with some creative lacing and truing. Both hubs use 36 spokes each, so make sure you use the right rims. For tires, we went with the largest possible set that we could find. In this case, we went with the Shinko Verge R016. These are dual compound tires, perfect for daily riding on wet and dry surfaces. Sizes are 120/70/17 for the front and a 150/60/17 at the back. Take note, to make these tires fit, your rims have to be properly aligned. For the rear wheel to fit in the swing arm, you need to remove this bracket holding the chain guard. Now wait a minute, isn't there a KLX230 Supermoto already? Yes, there is, and yes, you can go with that, but what we just did to this bike can be applied to that model as well. If you look at the factory-built KLX230 Supermoto, it doesn't have the wide tires that we just installed on this one. And honestly, the factory-built model looks like it was built on a low budget. Now speaking of low budget, while working on this KLX and the 150 version a week prior to this one, I can't help but notice that Kawasaki doesn't hide their imperfections, especially on this bike. Take for example these welds. They look very industrial looking. I'm sure those welds are very strong, but come on man, at least make an effort to make them pretty. And some of the components look and feel as if they were made hastily. The hub spacers feel like they're made from bottle caps. The hubs themselves have this raw metal finish, and the plastics overall feel very plastic. Anyway, how does this newly converted Supermoto KLX230S ride? Let's start with ergonomics. No doubt the seat height has dropped, and take note, this particular bike has a lowering linkage installed by its owner, so it's sitting a lot lower than expected. The seat itself feels firm and narrow, which is typical of modern dirt bikes, and the reach to the bars feels very neutral. By the way, the owner of this bike installed a handlebar riser with a 1-inch backward rise, making it feel a lot closer than stock. Releasing the clutch makes the KLX230S move forward on its own without giving it some gas. A clear sign that this has loads of low-end torque. That is a big plus, especially in tight situations, may it be in traffic or in the trails. Now, throttle response is very predictable. At lower RPMs, it feels very smooth and power buildup is predictable. Twisting the throttle to go faster gives no sudden surges in acceleration, just a smooth progression of power, which I think new riders will find pleasing. The mid-range of the RPM is where the meat is at. It's lively and torquey, and if you want to go fast in tight situations, this is where you want to be at. Despite its super friendly power delivery, I find the transmission and shifting through the gears a very clunky experience. It gives this crude mechanical feel as if I'm riding an older motorcycle, and finding neutral is pretty hard. Now, I'm not going to blame the bike entirely because this one is equipped with an easy clutch that the owner installed. Now, in terms of handling, this bike with its new wheels feels very agile. The weight distribution feels very low, which is a good thing, and darting in and out of tight spots is an easy job. Now, the one thing I do not like though is the heavy front end feel, maybe because of the large 120/70 front tire that we just installed. Now, if I had to redo this conversion, I would have installed a 110/70 tire instead for quicker turn-ins. Okay, in terms of suspension and ride comfort, I wasn't able to go over that many large potholes, but the shocks does an amazing job in dealing with road imperfections. Lastly, the brakes. All I can say is they're amazing. They work really well and give this smooth but reassuring feel when slowing down. Okay, to sum things up, the KLX230S is a massively underrated dual sport. Despite the overall fit and finish and that god-awful looking stock headlight, it is a bike worth considering in terms of real-world performance and utility. Now, I highly recommend you take one out for a spin in stock form to see if you like it or not. Personally, I think it will serve as a great entry-level motorcycle that will provide years of good times on and off-road. Now that's all I have for you today. Like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.